Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics. In this video I'd like to discuss the latest Brexit facepalm in a week full of them, whereby we are having to reach out around the world to bring in foreign workers for key Brexit jobs because they can't or won't fill them with UK applicants. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So I need to begin by correcting something that I've said about Brexit a number of times. Have to admit, I was a little bit wrong there. So I kept saying that there were no Brexit benefits. And yeah, I've done videos now that I think about it in the past, and this is the same one that talks about just that. You know, there are absolutely Brexit benefits. It's just that those benefits are for other countries at the expense of the UK. But now that I think about it, if we're going to be fair, quite a lot of Brexiteers, when they did talk about Brexit benefits, didn't necessarily say that those benefits would be for the British, did they? So we know that one of the loudest refrains from the Brexit camp, leave the EU so we can stop Johnny Foreigner coming over here and nicking our jobs. It's what these sort of people have been shouting since even before we joined the bloc. It's always been a thing. And it made no difference how often you tried to point things out, they just weren't listening. Then earlier this year we had a bit of a dry run of it, didn't we? Because we couldn't get in enough foreign workers to deal with the harvest. We were told by the Brexit crowd, oh, they're nicking the jobs off the British workers, the farmers aren't giving those jobs to British workers. Never mind the fact that many of those farms say that they've not had British applicants for them. Oh, no, that's a load of rubbish. Okay then. So this year we got to find out, because do you know what? We couldn't get the foreign workers. Where were all these British workers wanting to do the work then? Where were they? We couldn't find them. Farmers were even having to try and tempt people over from other countries and put them up in obviously COVID secured accommodation, spend more money, still couldn't get enough. But now we have the truly ironic situation that is causing Brexit to hit 21st century reality. So in order to be able to meet the demands of Brexit, we're creating more jobs, specifically to deal with customs. The government boasted about the growth in the customs sector, as if creating all that extra bureaucracy was something to be proud of. It was something we were going to reduce a few years ago. Now, isn't it brilliant? We're creating growth in bureaucracy. Brexit, excellent. But then something I got to admit I didn't foresee, but now that I've seen it, it makes absolute sense. See, the growth in the customs sector is fueling a need to employ foreign workers, both from in the EU as well as further afield. And this time, the jobs, they're going to foreign workers in preference, deliberately in preference to British ones. It's not just not enough British applicants, although that's part of it. It's like, in some cases, it's like, actually, we'd prefer the foreign workers over the British ones. Thank you very much. I will explain. This is the Brexit reality. And I'd love to know what the Brexit supporters think about it. Love to know. What this particular issue concerns is customs logistics, filling out all the paperwork. So as a result of Boris Johnson's hard Brexit, we are facing a bureaucracy jungle. And British haulage companies and traders haven't had to deal with anything like this for decades, which means, of course, some of them will never have had to deal with it, depending on how old they are, how long they've been in the industry. So companies are expanding in order to be able to provide services to deal with the paperwork on behalf of companies who will just be too small to be able to employ someone to do it themselves, or just otherwise don't have the time or expertise. Maybe they just can't get the staff themselves to be able to do it. So these companies are having to take on extra staff. Now, the companies already exist because customs arrangements do exist for some countries around the world, but it's now going to be on a much grander scale. But the thing is, you're looking at reports on this, and it's showing that these companies are taking on extra staff in Romania and India. That's what I was reading in The Independent. Now, actually, was it? Or was it somewhere else? But in terms of India, of course, now that is the world's outsourcing capital. We're aware of this. One of the genuine concerns that as a result of the pandemic, obviously the pandemic has created a new way of working for many clerical workers, office-based workers. So it encourages people to work from home. And at some point, companies, and some already have seen the advantage in doing this. So they don't need to pay for expensive office space. Utility bills have come down. You know, tea, milk and biscuit budgets have been, you know, rendered obsolete. There's a lot of advantages in letting your workers work from home on a permanent basis. Some of them are doing it as a bit of a halfway house, maybe looking at the future with a few days at home, a couple of days in the office. But for a lot of them, they'll be thinking, oh yeah, we could save a lot of money by just letting them work at home. And then, you know, some of the costs that they incur in terms of offices, heating, lighting, stuff like that, well, the employee can pay for that themselves. Way cheaper for them. The thing is, though, that when there's going to be a path followed here, potentially, and I'm very much in favour, by the way, of getting people out of the offices, but it has to be said there is a path here. So when the employers cotton onto that, they then may also realise that they don't have to employ people from their local area, because if you don't need to physically come into an office, there's no harm in employing people from further afield. So you could have a business based in Hampshire that employs people in Glasgow, for example. Makes no difference, you know, if you don't have to physically be in the company's office. I mean, there was a certain amount of this going on in my partner's workplace, for example. She's based in North Lincolnshire, and her boss is in Manchester. That's been the case for years. Now, and it's made no difference. In fact, actually, the working at home has enhanced their team's efficiency, because they were working remotely anyway, but they weren't using remote working tools, video conferencing, things like that before, which is a madness to me. But the thing is, when you go down that path, then it doesn't take long before those businesses then start to realise, well, actually, these jobs could be done by, never mind getting people from Glasgow, we could get people to do this in other countries, especially countries where the skills are high and the wages are low, like, I don't know, India. And this is exactly what's happening to these jobs in the customs sector, whose expansion the government are boasting about. Isn't Brexit great, said Boris Johnson. It's going to mean more British jobs going for people in India. Maybe that will persuade Modi to give me a trade deal. But there are also workers being hired in Romania. This is an absolute classic. In order to deal with Brexit, we need to employ, using government money, effectively initially anyway, to pay people in the EU, to make more work for people in the EU. Because the thing is that the reason for the outsourcing is partly to do with costs, lower wages. You know, even in Romania, it's still cheaper to employ people there than it is people in the UK. But also, they've cited that because Romania is a relatively new member of the EU, so they have recently had to deal with trading arrangements with the EU from outside. So the skill set is there, the knowledge is already existing in Romania in a way that it isn't in the UK. So they know how to deal with the EU from outside the bloc. And the companies involved have said that those skills just don't exist in the UK. So well done, the government there. Because instead of taking responsibility and encouraging the training of British workers to do these jobs, they basically told businesses to sort themselves out. You know, well, now they have. They've done what an individual business will do. They've employed people from overseas. And this isn't just employing foreign workers, of course, you know, which Brexiteers don't like in general. This is employing foreign workers in their own countries. So that is money passing from the UK to Romania and India, where the income taxes will be paid into the EU, as well as the subcontinent, and the remainder will be spent in those local economies. It won't ever come back to this country. Now, let's hear the Brexiteers try and explain where the benefit to the UK is there. And it also highlights another example of Brexit bureaucracy here, as well as hypocrisy from Boris Johnson. So he reckons he's holding out on an EU deal because we want to make our own rules. We're not signing up to the level playing field. We're not having your state aid rules. We're making our own rules. Oh yes, is that so? In which case, if we mean that and we're going to stick to our own rules, why don't we have a rule that, for example, means that you have to employ these people in the UK? It's because it's rubbish. They will be signing up to the level playing field as soon as they think they can get away with it politically. They won't be making up their own rules, but implementing rules set by countries just so that we can have their trade deals. Just like we did with Japan, just like we're doing with the United States, we'll be doing it for the EU as well, India too when the time comes, and everyone else, because that's how international agreements work. And it's especially how international agreements work when one of the parties is very desperate for trade deals. And just to highlight the scale of the issue here, so one of the companies doing this said you can hire 6 or 7 staff in India for the same price as one in the UK. And when you bear in mind that they aren't talking about the cost of hiring in London, like I said, you know, I mean, wages need to be higher in some parts of the country than others. Because it's very much remote work, and if you can employ people in India to do it, you can employ people anywhere in the UK to do it. Makes no difference. In the cheapest part of the UK, we're still too expensive. Now, the government would argue, well, we've put the money in to fund training to do, you know, so these companies could train British people to do these jobs in the UK. Yeah, you've put some money in. However, just as with everything else this lazy government have done, one, the amount of money may not ultimately enough. At the moment, it is enough because those funds are not really being used. But more importantly, what you're doing is throwing some cash about instead of actually doing some work yourselves. Because I talked a while ago about how some companies were fiddling this fund because they were basically poaching existing customs staff from other companies. Oh, we've got some new staff. Oh, can we have some of this government grant, please, to pay for their training? Yeah, here you go. So there's very little of that fund being used, but what has been used, quite a lot of it has been used for people that didn't really need the training. It was used as like golden hellos to be able to recruit staff, but they were recruited from the sector already. But if the government just give grants to the private sector to train people, then that private sector's looked at the situation and said, well, you know, this would be effort on our part because you're asking us to still do the training. Yeah, you're giving us some money to do it, but we've still got to do it. And you know what? We still then, when we get those workers, have to pay them, but we can get them from overseas for lower wages. And in the case of Romania, more skills. And we don't have to do as much training with those guys either because some of them already know what they're doing. Never rely upon the private sector. I mean, like, there's some things you can rely on for the private sector to do. But ultimately, you have to understand their profit for them comes first. Now, if profit runs alongside what it is you want them to do, then sure, the private sector will work. But in a lot of cases, that isn't the case. If you rely upon the private sector to train and hire local workers, if they can just hire ones from elsewhere for less effort and less money, that's not going to work. But what is known, and I've said it myself many times, is that we need an extra 50,000 bureaucrats. This has been said for months. We need an extra 50,000 bureaucrats in order to be able to deal with Brexit trading arrangements. The government have never once said how many have been trained up. Michael Gove has been asked regularly. He's never able to say how many he's done. And that was reflected in a report recently as well. That's still the case. But the fact is that we do not have those workers in the UK. If you want the skills, you go to a country that is or was recently trading with the EU from the outside, hence Romania. Or you go to a place with a high skill set, strong work ethic and pretty low wages, like India. Another Brexit bonus there, just not, for us. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.